Hey, good evening, everybody. We're back to another stagnant weather pattern in Texas. There's the cumulus, pretty much all fair weather, and we've got rid of a lot of the dust this afternoon. So let's head into the charts and see what's going on. At this time, across Nebraska, we've got a slight risk. Also have an area of thunderstorms extending from about Arkansas up to the central Mississippi Valley. That's with that zone of precipitable water lifting northeastward into the Midwest. And we got a very small severe thunderstorm watch out for western Nebraska around the North Platte area, but only a few scattered reports of hail. And that's about it, really. So let's check out the surface map and see what's going on. We'll start with the national map. And there's the zone of moisture extending from Arkansas up to Missouri. Got a very weak cold front dropping into Oklahoma and the Texas Panhandle, and another section of it extending up into the Great Lakes. So is this air mass here homogeneous? Again, this is the problem that you have getting into the synoptic scale charts. It tends to miss important details. So let's look at the mesoscale. This is what a mesoscale chart looks like. And this is what we use for severe weather forecasting. And almost immediately you can notice a difference in the temperature from Louisiana and Texas, where it's in the mid-90s, to Missouri, where it's in the 70s. That's a pretty significant difference between those two air masses. So we can't just assume that nothing's going on in this area. So if we isolate the air masses, it's going to come out to something like that right there, and then further north we can go up there separately. We'll do that in a minute. But here you can see on the tail end of that, actually this is along that active outflow boundary right there, from about Little Rock up to I guess around Batesville and Sikeston, Boot Hill, Missouri there. That's an outflow boundary, and we can kind of see the air that's feeding that. Here's the low 70s dew points extending north, moving up in Arkansas, and you can see how the dew points are a little bit weaker down there in Texas, only for the most part mid to upper 60s. So let's go a little bit further northeast. I think that's about as far as we can go there. The tail end of the, or the upper end of that tropical air, looks like it's right around there. In fact, you can see a little bit of an backdoor front right there in eastern Tennessee. So I think we're going to put that boundary about like that. And maybe go with a little bit of a stationary appearance up there in Kentucky, and then extending back towards Arkansas like that. So, you know, when you have the boundaries plotted out like that in the morning, you have a pretty good idea where things are going to form later in the afternoon. Elsewhere, let's see. Bermuda High making its appearance out there in the eastern U.S. There it is right there. That's the western edge of that Bermuda High. Very weak polar front up there in Canada. That's the polar high right there, and looks pretty nondescript out there in the western U.S. So the rest of the charts, oh yeah, we got some radar. That's that storm up there in North Platte, and we can see a little bit of that supercellular type structure right there. There it is right there. Looks like a second cell up to the west that'll have to be watched. And if we take a cross-section right through the updraft, this is the updraft right in here. So that's probably about where you'd want to be if you were chasing, and I kind of wonder if anybody's out there watching the storm. But you'd be looking up that way, or maybe to get a little bit better contrast, you'd head up a little bit further north and try to get backlighting from the clear sky further back. That helps increase your contrast there. So let's take that cross section And we can see overhang. That's a pretty good overhang right there. Got 70 dBz's all the way up to about 25,000 feet. And the tops are about 40,000. And let's take a look at the velocity. Doesn't look all that strong, really. In fact, I'm not going to bother doing storm relative velocity because it does look pretty weak. Let's go up into the upper parts of the storm. Yeah, here we do see a little bit of circulation coming together. You have to keep in mind where the radar is. It's going to be that way. That's the North Platte radar way up here near Thetford. So what that means is that if the radar is that way, and we have outbounds right there, outbounds are always red, inbounds are green, we can see a bit of cyclonic convergence right in this area here. This is up at about 8,000 feet. And let's see if that tightens up in the mid-levels of the storm. Not really. Okay, so some pretty broad rotation in that, and the diameters on that is going to be about 7 miles. So the center of it right there, and against the reflectivity, that just paints out kind of a very broad, weakly rotating updraft there. So this is mostly going to be a hailstorm with a little bit of wind. And I wouldn't expect the hail to be too large because the freezing level is up pretty high. August is about as high as you can get for that freezing level. All right, let's see. Let's go to the large-scale pattern. Jet stream still up there in Canada, and the flow in the low levels broken up into a series of waves. It's not often we see the waves that well defined at 250 millibars, but there's a strong trough right there. And you might almost skip over this wave right here. The contour pattern not really reflecting that very well, but there it is right there. So it looks like maybe the center of the circulation probably about right in here. And then a larger wave out there in the eastern U.S. that's moving on off. Probably a few showers out there in New England, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Maine. And in the low levels, 500 millibars, this is getting down to about 5 kilometers. There's a closed low showing up there. And then at 700 millibars, you can pick out that low a little bit better right there. It looks like that's over Iowa. All right, let's head into the thickness, see if there's any change at all. Everything is moving very slow. Remember yesterday we were looking at that front coming, I think that was coming into northern Alberta and British Columbia, and it's only moved a few hundred miles. So this evening it's located from northern Manitoba down to Saskatchewan, and then the warm front is across western Ontario there. Then up there, this is going to be an occluded or an occlusion, and we've got some very cold air up there in the western Arctic, western Canadian Arctic. We're showing 526 decameters for that thickness. Yeah, there it is up there over the Cambridge Bay area, and Alaska getting a little bit of that cold air up there also. Down across the U.S., we can see the Bermuda High. This is a piece of it extending from the western Atlantic inland. So basically this entire area here is under the influence of that Bermuda High. So we're expecting the conditions across that part of the country to be kind of tropical, and then towards the edge where they've had a little bit better moisture advection, a little bit of precip there in Illinois and Missouri. That's going to be fairly tropical in nature. All right, let's check out that precipitable water. That's not precipitable water. Let's try that again. There we go. So, tracking the very slow progress, this is almost This is like 10 miles an hour of movement. It's been a very slow trajectory that we've seen with this very moist air right there over Illinois and Missouri. About 3 days ago, it was across Texas. So we're going to see that just continue moving probably on up into Ohio and Michigan over the next day or two, and maybe eventually it'll work up there into the northeast U.S. All right, good time to take a look at the satellite. There we go. Go ahead and animate that there. And there you can see that rotation there with that upper level system across Iowa. There's a separate system there across western South Dakota, helping to trigger those storms there in the North Platte area. And we'll take a close look at a couple regions here. Okay, there's the Midwest. Let's see what it looked like earlier today. Remember yesterday we went over cloud types, and this might be a good opportunity to learn a little bit about that. Up in the Lake Michigan area, we see predominantly cirriform coverage. This is cirrus. This would be high cloud 2. The symbol for that would be like that right there. So this is dense cirrus originating probably a couple days earlier from some of that convection there. Elsewhere, we can see a little bit of cumulus under there. That looks a little bit vertical, so I might go with something like that for a cloud type. And we're not going to see too much stratiform cloud this time of year. Things tend to be convective. But yeah, this looks definitely kind of stratiform out there around the Omaha area. And this is probably stratocumulus and altocumulus. So we'll go ahead and animate this and see what happened over Illinois. There we go. Looks like some early storms get going. This is kind of disorganized from northwest Iowa to eastern, or northwest Illinois to eastern Iowa there. Looks like the strongest storms are just up northwest of the Quad Cities right there. Down in the southeast U.S., there's been some weather. Typically, what we see this time of year is a land breeze coming together offshore at night, and tends to be kind of rainy in this area south of the Florida Panhandle. However, today we've seen the sea breeze surging inland, and there it is right there. And let's watch that move northward. Let me slow that down just a little bit. Let's try that one more time. There it is right there, moving inland into Alabama and Georgia. So producing quite a bit of thunderstorm activity in that area. And then towards afternoon, late afternoon, as we lose the heating, there's a lot less convection along that boundary. So it is strongly diurnal. And we get a lot of rain this time of year in this belt here, originating from that sea breeze. Let's look out west. Monsoon is definitely going full steam there from the Mogollon Rim up to Utah and up into the deserts of Nevada. So let's animate that. In fact, we'll go back to earlier in the day. And one thing that's kind of interesting is this little mesoscale vortex right here. We'll animate this and you can see what happens with that. Doesn't seem to actually generate any storms itself, but around the area there's a lot of convection. So this isn't actually really causing anything. This is actually the result of stuff that happened earlier last night. And I've got a frame here I can show you. And that's coming from this convective complex that happened overnight around the Ely area of Nevada. And what we'll watch is the mesoscale convective vortex come together. And this is basically just kind of a pool of warm air aloft and comes together, and there it is spinning. And then that heads up into the around the Dugway Proving Ground up to Salt Lake City this evening. Lots of storms down there in Arizona. Last night when we ended the webcast, you can see that there were storms around the Tucson area. They continued overnight around Casa Grande and Ajo, and they died off around dawn, and as we had redevelopment this afternoon with the heating, storms going up around Douglas, Bisbee, and Nogales. And those look pretty strong there. And we would expect those to keep going for about another 8 or 9 hours tonight. It's that time of year, pretty active down in that region. All right, we can take a look at a couple soundings, and we'll see if the latest Fort Worth sounding is in. And it is. And we can see the drop-off of moisture in the column right there, showing some mid to upper 60s dew points right there in the lowest 5,000 feet. But the temperatures are warming up a little bit as that low departs up into the central U.S. So in the wake, temperatures come up, and that tends to stabilize the air mass. So if we try to lift a column, you can see that we're capped right there. So it's kind of a small amount of capping. If we had a little bit more moisture, we could certainly overcome that. But not today. Let's try sounding for North Platte, since we've got that system bearing down on North Platte. We have to keep in mind that the sounding was taken about an hour ago. So we want to see if maybe the storm is interfering with the sounding, and probably not. I think the observation was taken right in here, and the storm was further back. So this should be a good proximity sounding. And we can see the inflow right there coming out of the east-southeast at about 20 knots. Not a whole lot of moisture, and this is helping to produce kind of a high base structure. So I'd probably select the 10 gram per kilogram line for the moisture. And then our lifted parcel will look something like that right there. So quite a bit of CAPE and only a very small amount of convective inhibition. So tops on that anvil tops should be about maybe 34,000, and then the overshooting tops probably about 42 to 43. And as you can see, there's actually some shear, getting 65 knots up there at about 30,000 feet, contrasting with easterly winds at 20 in the low levels. So that's going to be about a good 60 to 65 knots of bulk shear, and just the very tiniest amount of mid-level wind to help provide a little bit of curvature to the hodograph. So let me see if there's a hodograph in here. Yep, there's the hodograph, and they've got the heights labeled in millibars. So it's got that kind of hook shape there. It's not a whole lot, but it looks like the storm motion is going to be, well, we can pretty much plot that. It's going to be somewhat like that right there. So all of this is the storm out of helicity right there. So it's getting a little bit of that to help form that supercell structure there. So let's see the latest frame, see what's going on in that area. It's already blown through North Platte. So it was looking pretty good about 20 minutes ago as it came through town. And at this time, let's look at the velocity. Yeah, it's still not really tightened up much. Okay, yeah, just tighten up a very tiny bit there. The diameter on that is about 4 miles or so. Yeah, that latest scan, it's not looking too bad there. So there it is, and that's probably about where I'd be watching, right in that area there. So it actually does look a little bit better than it did about 10 or 20 minutes ago. But we got to keep in mind that this is kind of a high base storm, and the moisture field is not really all that great there. All right, so let's see, what else do we got? Guess we'll head into the forecast. Let me take a quick look at chat there. Things have been pretty busy. I've been working on programming right up until about 15 minutes ago. So I'm going to be getting back into that shortly. So let me check in on chat real quick. Carl Berghoff, Shirley Keast, Fun with Tech. Got Burl H, Alexei Pinkson-Walsh, Carl Berghoff. Appreciate the comments. Erica Baker in Coffeyville, Kansas, 84 over 70. 10 inches of rain. Wow. Up there in northwest Montgomery County. I got Ryan here reporting dusty skies in southern Florida. Hot temperatures high in the 90s all day. Sue M has a tornado warning up there. Got Willie Greenway, Mike Estwick, live snake photograph, yeah, Andrew Hotchkiss, and Brett Dean, 88 degrees, another heat wave. Okay, for the overnight in Texas, not expecting a whole lot here. Yeah, about the only storms we see up there is in northeastern Arkansas, kind of regenerating and moving on into Tennessee. Looks like another cluster out around the Clovis area doesn't really get going. So go ahead and take a look at the upper levels, see how things look over the next couple days. The Midwest is going to be the place to be. We got this one outgoing wave right there and another one coming in. There it is right there, coming into Iowa tomorrow morning. So we're going to expect more rain for Illinois, Indiana, probably flight delays there at O'Hare. And this next wave will be moving across the Midwest into the Northeast for Friday. So by Friday evening, yeah, that's going to be bearing down on Pennsylvania and New York. Ridging coming in from the west across the northern Rockies there. So that's going to mean warm weather along the Rockies and the high plains there. Got a wave coming inland, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be sticking up north there. Nope, this one actually is dropping down. Okay, that's good news for us here in Texas. So that'll be dropping down for Sunday. Let's see where that goes. It's the last frame I have, but I guess by the look of that, we're probably going to have our precip chances coming up for Monday and Tuesday in the Southern Plains. So, GFS. It is August. There's not going to be a whole lot of weather this time of year, but that is a pretty active pattern up to the north. So for Friday evening, it's going to be looking like that. Lots of precip from Pittsburgh up to Buffalo, Rochester, and Montreal. Along the tail end, looks like some storms in the Louisville to Evansville, and possibly as far as Memphis area. However, most of the plains will be under this southerly flow. That is a very deep southerly flow right there, one little boundary across Oklahoma. And the next change will be coming in from the west there. Lots of precip breaking out on the high plains for Sunday. There's that big high moving into the western Canada area in the northwest. And yeah, there we go. This is Monday. Looks like some storms there in Oklahoma. And this is a pretty good ridge building into the northern plains there. So we will see things get active next week. So there's Monday night right there. Storms moving into the DFW area, it appears. And then it looks like another wave possibly moving in down the backside there. This looks like kind of a system like that. High pressure across the northern plains, covering things for Wednesday. I think that system that we had out there looks like it moves kind of directly across over that cold dome. And then the next chance of rain looks like that's around Thursday, Friday. And then we've got this next front heading more into the Great Lakes area. It's kind of like a little Alberta clipper there. So that'll be moving east-southeast there. And this is a big 1024 millibar high there across the Great Lakes. So it'll be very cool late next week across the Midwest there. Southerly flow building back into the plains once again late next week. And looks like another wave coming in from the northwest. So things are active. You can see the thickness gradient building in this area right there. This is for Monday the 27th. So let's see what happens. Yeah, this system picks that up. There it is right there. A lot of weather there for the northern plains. And then down here in Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas, we'll just kind of get the scraps of that. So you can see this polar high moves mostly through the Great Lakes, and yeah, these are the scraps that move down into Texas. So really it depends on what the cap strength is and what the moisture return is like. That's really what dominates the chances of rain. Looks like this next front moves all the way down into northern California around the 31st. I don't know if that's going to change the weather there very much. The gradient is definitely picking up in that area, but GFS is calling that kind of dry. And that's all we got. And for tomorrow, we're going to be seeing September appearing within that GFS window there. Okay, that's about all I got for tonight. Hope you all have a good evening. Take care, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.